Okay, we're back. I just wanted to show you where we're at with the moccasin. Um, we finished sewing that heel portion. It should look like an upside down T. And we're just gonna flip the whole thing inside out. We're done sewing the leather part of this. You can see now we got a nice ruffles up at the toe. Our vamp is on there, and then our heel is now sewn up. Sorry. So what we're gonna do next is everybody should already have their fleece parts completed, and it should look very similar to the leather part. So this is our fleece. How we're gonna put these together is the seams on the mocks on the liner is gonna be facing the seam of the moccasin. So this part is not gonna be flipped inside out. It's just gonna go straight into your moccasin. And we're just gonna push it up as close as we can up to the toes, matching up the toes. And then the same thing with the heel. We're gonna just push it down into that heel section. So sometimes you have to pull up some of the excess fabric up into the toe section, but it should fit pretty good. And as they're worn, these parts will like start molding to your foot. They'll start sitting properly every time. It's just a little bit different. The other unique thing about these type of slippers, they're kind of uni-foot, meaning it could go on either foot. And after a while, you'll just start wearing them on the same feet, and then they'll actually start kind of molding to that foot size, or to that foot that you've been wearing it on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start sewing the liner lightly to the outer shell. And this we're going to use some beading thread. I've included it in your packages. And we're going to do the same. We're going to just do a quick whip stitch. We're not going to do the stitches very close. They're actually going to be very far apart because at this point we're not using that as a structural seam. It's more or less just to hold the moccasin and the liner together before we put on the trim. So as you see, if I flip this inside out, you're not gonna see the sewing stitches like that. You might see a little bit of the thread poking through, but it should be the nice seam on the inside. Same thing with your heel, that you should see not the ends of the thread, but just the seam where you sewn. So I generally like to start my moccasins. I go between the liner and the leather, and I actually will go through the fleece portion first, just the fleece only, and then I'm going to make sure I tuck in any little tails. And then where I'm going to start, I always have my thimble on, and at this point I'm going to push the needle through the first part, and we're going to go through the vamp. We're going to go through the top of the vamp, and then we're going to make our way around this other section. So like I said, these are very wide stitches. Here I'm going to go at least like a centimeter. So really there should only be maybe 6 stitches across the top of the vamp. And this is just mostly to hold the fleece in place. The other thing you want to be careful is to not sew too far down into the leather, because we're going to be putting a trim on this one, and you don't want any of those stitches showing. So very shallow stitches, very wide stitches for this section, and I'll show you once I get close. And then always make sure that you always put a stitch right where any seams might be. So I'm getting to the end of the vamp and I'm gonna add an extra little stitch here just to hold it in place. And oh yeah, and then I guess another note here is it doesn't need to be super tight or very snug. You see, they're very wide stitches on this section. And I'm just going to do the same thing. If it seems like your fleece is a little bit bigger than the leather, you're going to stretch out your leather a little bit to match the fleece so that they match up. Make sure you hold your heel stitch here or your heel seam, hold those together and then just measure it out. If it seems like it's very even, then you don't need to stretch any leather or stretch any fleece. And we just continue on. So I'm going to do the same stitches. We're going to go very, very wide stitches, very shallow stitches, and it's going to be about, like I said, about at least a centimeter apart and maybe a 1/4 inch or even less than a 1/4 inch. This is mostly just to hold your liner in place. So I'm not going to continue on with the video, but as you see, there's an example of the stitches, very short, very shallow. We're going to end it here and then start another video.